Welcome to another episode of Cosmic Comics. The Saga of the Serpent Crown continues with a storyline known as the Serpent Crown Affair, covered across issues of Marvel 2-in-1, numbers 64 through 67, published in 1980. The last time we saw the Serpent Crown from Earth 616 was 5 years ago at this point. That's not in Marvel time, but that's in our time. Those issues where Captain America fought the Serpent Squad as Nomad took place in 1975. The other Serpent Crown, the one taken from Earth S, home of Squadron Supreme, was last seen being dropped into the middle of the Pacific Ocean by Vision. I love this story because it ties together various dangling plot threads within the Marvel Universe while really breathing new life into everything that it touches. This is one of the hallmarks, I think, of Mark Gruenwald's writing, as he is a master of picking up on the forgotten and fallow plot threads of Marvel and giving it the appearance of being planned to come about this way all along. Here, with The Crown's return, we're giving a 4-issue storyline that hits all the right notes for a Serpent Crown story. I could keep going on, but let's just let it unfold. We can tell some poop is gonna fly because the very first page of this arc, labeled the prologue no less, begins with Ben Grimm breaking up with longtime girlfriend Alicia Masters. All this circles around the age-old superhero trope already being overused by the 1980s of the hero who breaks up with their significant other because they're afraid of putting them into harm's way. Ben attempts to talk things out with Reed Richards about what just happened, but they are interrupted by the doorbell. These two are Walter Newell of the Pacifica Institute of Oceanography and Dr. Henry Croft, who was a normal human but has been turned into a water breather with scales against his will. In Submariner issue number 61, Dr. Croft and 50 other passengers on a plane were hijacked and forced to land on a small island that had been fortified into what's known as the Hydro Base. The base was run by one Dr. Hydro, hence the name Hydro Base, who believed that mankind needed to return to the sea in order to move forward and find salvation. Once there, the passengers were all forced into a gas chamber. You can imagine that they were all pretty freaking scared, thinking that they were going to be killed, especially as noxious fumes started to envelop them. Much to their surprise, none of the passengers were killed, but were instead turned into amphibians, like Hydro himself. Namor beats Hydro in the end, but obviously that doesn't reverse the process of the gas. So it turns out, mostly nobody wants anything to do with these freaks. The Atlanteans have always been rather xenophobic, and why let these people spend too much time on land without knowing anything about their condition really and knowing if it's contagious? Although it seems to me like in the end this would actually be pretty cool. I mean, sure you have scaly skin, but shoot, I mean you can breathe underwater. That's freaking awesome. Anyway, Stingray was told about the Hydro Man, which apparently is what these freaks are called, and started working with them on a cure. Stingray noticed that their skin closely resembled that of the inhuman Triton whom Stingray had encountered while helping Namor in the past. The Inhumans are a secretive group of self-mutated humans, and as such can be rather hard to find. But Stingray knows that the Fantastic Four have been in contact with them in the past, and that's why he's shown up here now and is hoping that Reed Richards is willing to help out. It would have been nice to get some kind of detail as to what specifically about the scales and the condition reminded him of the Inhuman Triton, as opposed to, say, I don't know, or any other snake-human hybrid, or fish-human hybrid, or you see where I'm going with this. Reed dives right into the project. Unfortunately, this means that Ben has lost his chance for personal time with his flexible friend to discuss what happened between him and Alicia. Ben moves over to the gym, and he ends up falling asleep on the equipment. The next morning, Ben gets woken up by Reed, who has completed his testing on Dr. Croft and has a mission for Ben. The test showed that Dr. Croft was transformed via the same process the Inhumans used to force mutations, mutagenic Terrigen Mist. They contact the Inhumans about this, and they're totally skeptical for a couple of reasons. First, the Terrigen Mist isn't supposed to exist anywhere on Earth except in their possession. And secondly, I don't think they want to admit that someone else might get a hold of the mist and use it because something like that getting out to the general public could cause a tremendous amount of mayhem. Just see other storylines dealing with the Terrigen mist, if you don't believe me. The Inhumans end up agreeing to meet up with Dr. Croft, and so Ben agrees to play the part of taxi driver / chauffeur and flies the two doctors out to the other coast and makes pretty good time at it. They're supposed to meet up with Triton, but they arrive early, and Stingray suggests that they dive in for a look at a suspicious-looking oil rig. In Stingray's day-to-day life, he's Walter Newell, oceanographer and engineer, and he knows that there aren't supposed to be any oil deposits in this part of the ocean. Ben agrees to set the Pogo down to check things out. Part 1 of the Serpent Crown affair. Thus, it begins. It says so, right there on the page. And what better way to get things started than to leave the scientist you're charged with protecting behind while you surf on the Stingray's back over to the suspicious oil rig. That could never turn out bad. I mean, but really, you shouldn't really leave the guy you're charged with looking after behind. And, oh my goodness, how is this not sort of a jump the shark style moment with the thing on the back of Stingray here? All except for the fact that this is like way more adorable than it ever should be. I mean, look at it. It's cute. Our hometown heroes pull up to the rig, but are denied passage aboard as they don't qualify as authorized personnel. Then, holy serendipitous timing, Batman! Right at that moment, the rig starts to rock like crazy from an underwater explosion, destroying one of the derrick's support columns and causing the entire structure to lean precariously. Ben Grimm quickly finds the problem, but isn't happy about being downgraded from driver to oil rig support beam reinforcement. Won't he be pleased to discover that during Secret Wars 3, he gets to be a wall? At any rate, Ben successfully straightens the rig back out and uses materials at hand to create a makeshift support for the damaged section. Upon reaching the deck of the rig, he knows something's wrong as the workers raise their tools for a full-on assault. I mean, who would attack the ever-loving blue-eyed thing right after he saved them? The thing is initially taken down in a dog pile of Roxxon oil workers. After enough abuse, he tosses everybody aside with a resounding, "It's clobbering time." Ben takes a moment to make one last attempt to talk sense with the workers before laying down the hurt. While all this is going on, Stingray is running across trouble under the water as a number of guys in scuba gear start shooting harpoons in his direction. He fights them off with an electrical blast, but notes that soon the entire rig is going to collapse. It's only a matter of time. The scuba guys continue to press their attack, leaving Stingray no choice but to fight until each has been knocked out cold. At that moment, something alarms the Stingray, and the next time we see him, he's being tossed from the water cold and into the arms of a cornered Ben Grimm, and everybody is temporarily distracted by a small submarine emerging from the depths. And much to anybody's surprise, out pops a brand new Serpent Squad. Say what? That's right. Anaconda, Black Mamba, Death Adder, and Sidewinder. All of these are new characters. 4 new snake-based characters in a single page. Crazy! And the plug for the next issue is Crown Hunt. Oh yeah! So, the next issue opens with Ben basically telling the Serpent Squad to buzz off, and the Serpent Squad sulking and talking amongst themselves about the situation, which is nice because it gives us, the reader, a chance to get in on some of the foreshadowing and learn why they've suddenly made an appearance on the scene. We're told they were the ones who dropped the charges that are currently causing the collapse of the oil rig, but it appears from their conversation that this was a result of their carelessness in attempting to locate the Serpent Crown for Roxxon. They recognize that the thing's presence is probably coincidental and that he most likely has no idea that the fake oil rig was being used to search for the Serpent Crown, that the Vision previously dropped into the Pacific. I love that while they are talking about this, the reader can see the evacuation process in progress with all of the workers filling the life rafts. While the Thing attempts to revive Stingray, he is attacked from behind by Anaconda, who tosses the Thing with his punch further than I ever would have expected him capable of doing. We all know that the Thing can't resist talking a little smack once his punches start to fly. It works against him this time, as it proves the necessary distraction for the other members of the Serpent Squad to capture Stingray and use his life as a bargaining chip to get Ben to follow their orders. Soon Ben is chained to one of the derrick's support beams, and in an effort to deter escape, the other side of the chains are attached to Stingray so that if Ben pulls hard in an attempt to escape, he will end up ripping off the arms of his friend. Turns out that the Serpent Squad don't really actually want to kill anybody outright. They just want to finish their job and go home. Time passes, and we check back in on our two heroes whose position is getting worse by the moment as the oil rig slowly picks up speed in its process of toppling over. In a desperate attempt to escape, Ben attempts to follow the post he's attached to all the way to its base. This idea proves fruitful and ends up being able to slip out after knocking it loose from the ocean floor. He then returns himself and Stingray to the pogo plane. Ben begins to complain about Triton not showing up on time, but ends up sticking his foot in his mouth as Triton happens to be there with explanation at hand. In return, Ben explains their current predicament with the oil rig, Serpent Squad, and the search for the Serpent Crown. Amazing! These two actually stopped and talked something out. They didn't have to throw punches at each other. Fascinating. It just so happens that Triton brought along some thing-sized diving equipment, so upon hearing about the Serpent Crown that is located somewhere beneath the oil rig, the Thing and Triton are able to go and look into that. So this is pretty interesting as we go beneath the water, because we get to see that really this entire new Serpent Squad, they can all breathe underwater, which also raises other questions about the submarine and anyways. Beneath the water, the new Serpent Squad is working together as a team to extract the Serpent Crown, and soon they meet with success. It is short-lived as Triton comes in at full speed to crash the party. In a smart move, Ben sneaks up behind Death Adder and knocks him out with a single punch. Great move, because this is the one member of the squad that can potentially kill you upon contact. Triton doesn't fare as well as the Thing in the battle. He comes raging at Sidewinder full speed, but Sidewinder just pulls his signature move and disappears somewhere else, leaving Triton to take a headfirst dive into stone. Ben is engulfed in Anaconda's grasp, who he can't escape. Then he is approached by Black Mamba, who draws Ben into her hypnotic grasp. By manipulating the Dark Force to use one's own memories or recent life events against themselves as a distraction to get lost in while Black Mamba kills you. Ben's personal temptation is Alicia begging to come back into his life, but fortunately, Ben notices the specter of death in their eyes, and he snaps out of it to find his oxygen mask removed and himself drowning. This is followed by a sharp electronic burst that lands Ben passed out on the bottom of the ocean floor. But it turns out that burst came from Stingray, now recovered, who let loose his electrical pulse in an attempt to get Ben's attackers to back off. Ben starts to recover almost immediately after receiving air. Death Adder is jumped back into the fray and is leading a healthy offense against Triton until Stingray moves in to save the day and put Death Adder down for a second time during this fight. Meanwhile, Black Mamba hasn't recovered from Stingray's electrical shock, and Ben is enjoying his revenge on Anaconda with some underwater clobbering time. The only member of the squad left is Sidewinder, who is apparently already fleeing in the small sub. Stingray and Triton take off after it, but during the pursuit a depth charge is dropped and runs the risk of a head-on collision with Triton, so Stingray attempts to disarm the charge with a blast, but ends up setting the whole thing off. While our heroes recover from the blast, the submarine leaves the water and takes to the skies. Ben searches the water around the explosion and comes to the surface, thinking that Triton and Stingray must have perished in the blast, but is soon corrected and learns that they survived by riding out the shockwave of the blast. but supposedly 3 of the new Serpent characters are buried in a rock slide thanks to the blast. This chapter wraps up with a bunch of heroes that are literally all wet. Their target is gone, and they have no idea where he was going. I'll pick this up again in my next video, where I'll cover the next portion of the Serpent Crown affair. Thanks for watching. Feel free to hit any of the buttons below. I'm out.